Virginia Tech is now 14th in the country in the college football playoff rankings. Murmurs of can the Hokies run the table and suddenly play their way back into the college football playoff picture? Well, here's a reality check for Virginia Tech here. Teams that are going to contend for the national championship do not lose to Syracuse, and they do not win close games against the likes of Duke and Pittsburgh, albeit on the road. So look, take nothing away from what Justin Fuente has done his first season in charge at Virginia Tech. The Hokies have pleasantly surprised me, but it's time to be realistic and it's time to focus on the task at hand, which is facing Georgia Tech Saturday at 3:30 in Lane Stadium. And the Yellow Jackets traditionally are a tough matchup. They're 5-4 coming in. They've won 2 out of their last 3, although their last game was a blowout loss against North Carolina. However, it is important to point out that Georgia Tech followed up a 341-yard rushing performance against Duke with 334 yards against UNC. They have playmakers. They have guys who can move the ball down the field. Dedrick Mills has 578 rushing yards. That's not that many yards, but I'll tell you what is a lot. 10 touchdowns. That is something you want to be worried about. A touchdown machine for Georgia Tech. In addition, they have a sophomore A-back named Clinton Lynch, who has scored at least 1 touchdown in each of Georgia Tech's last 4 games and has averaged 17.2 yards a touch over 40 touches this season. 28 carries and 12 receptions. So, look, Tech's going to have their hands full. Paul Johnson, the Georgia Tech head coach, look, he runs an outdated offense, but even though it's outdated, it still creates problems. The thing is, Bud Foster has schemed well against it in the past, and you like his chances in the future. So it could be a classic situation that the Tech defense has been facing lately of bend, don't break. Guys like, the Edmonds brothers, Matua Puaka, Mook Reynolds, they're going to have their heads full, or hands full, heads full too, I guess, taking hits, but they're going to have to really contain and force Georgia Tech to stay away from the end zone because they are going to get their yards. I think Georgia Tech's going to get some points through field goals because they're going to move the ball down the field. Tech was going up, Virginia Tech last week. You can't say Tech here because you're talking 2 Techs. Virginia Tech gave up 227 rushing yards and 3 scores against Duke, and that's just not acceptable in that regard. So, look, major concern there. How is Virginia Tech going to play the rushing D? And even though it's been shaky at times, Virginia Tech is 4th in the nation defensively on 3rd downs, and Georgia Tech is dead last in the country. They allow offenses to convert on 52% of their chances. So the Hokie offense is going to continue to move the chains on 3rd down in this game. But my main concern in this game is how is Jerod Evans going to be utilized? He's become the face of the Hokie football program. From a player perspective, absolutely wonderful quarterback, going to be an NFL player. He's thrown for 21 touchdowns this year and only 2 interceptions. But I want to see him run the ball less. See our signal caller for the Hokies take less hits. He leads the Hokies with 533 yards rushing, and that's kind of disappointing when you consider that Virginia Tech has really talented options in the backfield. I say it week after week. Trayvon Martin needs to be fed the rock. He can get it done. Yes, he's a little bit undersized, but man, he is agile, he's shifty, and when he gets into the open field, he is lethal. Marshawn Williams can also be a knockout punch, delivering the power runs that'll move the chains. Tech can move the ball without having to rely on Evans, but I understand from Fuente's point of view why he is such an appealing option because he's so big and so mobile. I mean, look, on 3rd and short when you need a 1st down, you can go to him, but you can't abuse having that opportunity to have Evans run the ball, or else the passing game will suffer as a result as well. So, Isaiah Ford, watch out for him. He is on the cusp of breaking a lot of Virginia Tech receiving records. To date so far this season, he's had 710 receiving yards and 6 touchdowns, and he would have so much more if defenses weren't keying in on him so much. But the Georgia Tech defense cannot afford to, put too much attention on Ford because Cam Phillips and Bucky Hodges are starting to really hit their stride, and I expect them to have big days on Saturday as well. The big question here is, can Virginia Tech win a blowout game? Of course, they can win this game, but can they dominate the way they did towards the end of the game against Miami, and you know how they were playing more earlier in the season, albeit against weaker competition? The Hokies need to win this game, and they need to win big if they're going to start seriously thinking about contending for an ACC championship. Of course, first things first, have to win the Coastal Division. I'm going to be in Lane Stadium for this game. I'm incredibly excited. My final score prediction for this will be Virginia Tech 40, Georgia Tech 23. And for those who have passed and for those to come, reach for excellence.